Can you guys hear that? Because I can hear it on my end. I can hear. What the hell? I have it on my end.
Defendant is guilty.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. As to charge ID 2008743C, charging the defendant, Adam Montgomery, with the crime of armed career criminal as it relates to the rifle. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant is guilty.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
As to charge ID 1964101C, charging the defendant with the crime of receiving stolen property as it relates to the shotgun. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that the defendant is guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
And as to charge ID 1964100C, charging the defendant, Adam Montgomery, with the crime of receiving stolen property as it relates to the rifle. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that the defendant is guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
And on charge ID 1964099C, charging the defendant, Adam Montgomery, with the crime of theft by unauthorized taking as it relates to the shotgun. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that the defendant is guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
And as to charge ID 1964098C, charging the defendant, Adam Montgomery, with the crime of theft by unauthorized taking as it relates to the rifle. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that he's guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to have the alternates return to the jury deliberation room along with the deliberating jurors. You may now speak about the case. So if the, yes.
Prior to the release, we would like to hold the jury.
Okay.
And don't object to a poll as to the verdict instead of one at a time.
On all of the verdicts together for each juror. Yes. Okay. So,
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm now going to poll the jury. So I'll ask you each individually for your verdict. And this is as to all charges. So on charge ID 2008742C, charging the defendant with the crime of armed career criminal as it relates to the shotgun.
hang on one moment.
So, members of the jury, this is to as to all of the charges. So juror number 2, how do you find the defendant on all charges? Guilty or not guilty? Juror number 3? Juror number 4?
Guilty.
Juror number 6?
Guilty.
Juror number 7? Juror number 8? Juror number 9? Juror number 10? Juror number 11? Juror number 12?
Guilty.
Juror number 13?
Guilty.
And juror number 14.
Guilty. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I am now going to return the alternates to the deliberation room and return all of the deliberating jurors there as well. You are now able to speak to the alternates about the case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be here for just another moment, and then I will come back and speak with you, and then you will be released for the day. Okay? So you can bring the jurors back. All rise for the jurors, please. May be seated. So council, we just need to address the issue of timing for sentencing. So I'm going to look to you, Attorney Smith. What is your view about timing for sentencing?
I can do it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, convenience of the court.
Okay, and do you have any idea how long you anticipate needing for this hearing? And I'll be asking the state the same.
I think no more than an hour for our position on sentencing.
And Attorney Agati, anytime after the, I'll say 3 weeks. I don't know that the court will have the time in the next 3 weeks, but anytime after that, is that satisfactory to the state as well?
It is, Your Honor.
Oh.
We would estimate probably about the same amount of time, maybe a little bit less for our presentation. I think 2 hours total would be able to incorporate the whole hearing.
Okay, and I will tell you that I do want any proposed sentencing sheets, and if you intend to provide sentencing memorandum, I do want those 5 days prior to the scheduled hearing, so 5 days in advance of the hearing. So we will send notice, we'll look for a hearing date, we'll send a notice out if that date conflicts with, I know you all have other things as well. If it does conflict, then communicate with each other and file something with the court, maybe with some proposed dates. Somehow we'll, or maybe I'll get you in for a quick scheduling conference if it looks like we're going to have trouble coordinating the schedules. Okay, but we'll send something out when we can find a 2-hour time slot. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Thank you, May. You rock, May. Magenta said bye, Beach. He doesn't look too tough now, does he? Who's crying now? Hope he gets beat around like he beat Harmony around. And this is just for the weapons. If what I read was correct, he can get 10 years per charge. That's a lot of time. And we still have the trial for Harmony. And that will be in November. Now, I want to look at this camera, this from court the other day, because I didn't get to go through it with you guys yesterday. We went through all of Kayla's stuff. And this morning, because I'm a weirdo, I was, what did I do? I think by now I'd know how to use this thing. Here we go. I was going through Kim's testimony, And I got real nervous because you could tell she was withholding. You could tell she was lying. Christina said, anyone, where is Harmony's bio mom? I'd love to know. How come she was not there for this? Does she think she only shows up for the actual trial? Where is she in her Minnie Mouse costume? Where'd she go?
We didn't have a chance to finish talking about some of the rest of the video that you had obtained last Friday. So my hope today is to just very briefly go over one last thing where we ended on Friday, and then go through a few more of those materials that we looked at on the CDO identified States Exhibit 1. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. And what I'd like to start with is, I believe the last thing that we had done is we were just looking at some video footage that was on one of the tracks of this CD, specifically the Service Desk Overview Monitor track, which runs from 13:55:50 all the way through to 14:29:42. Do you recognize that on the screen, that same video that we watched before?
I do.
Okay. I'd like to play the very beginning of this video again, just for a couple of seconds to reorient us to where we are. And I'll start that from the beginning. So again, what area of the store is this?
This is the service desk.
Okay. And that green item over on the left-hand side.
That is the Eco ATM machine.
Okay. Hold on a second. We seem to be getting a little glitchy here. Just a moment. Start that again. All right. Is that better? Easier to see without the pixelation? And I believe you had described for us on Friday that that Eco ATM, that was for recycling of electronics. People could get money for them.
Correct.
And from this particular video, we had watched this several different minutes, up, I believe, until almost 29 minutes into the videos. And how long, again, did you say was a typical length of time for somebody to be standing at this machine to do a transaction?
From my understanding, 5 to 10 minutes.
5 to 10?
Objection then, foundation.
I believe we established that on Friday, but I will reestablish foundation. Mr. Dope, how long did you work at Walmart again?
About 2 years.
2 years. And during that time period, could you estimate how many people you have seen use that machine?
Maybe 50. And I have also personally used it myself.
How long did it take it when you used it to recycle some of your electronics?
I didn't use it to the fullest extent. I just used it to get an estimate of what it would give me. And it was about 5 minutes to
5
just
minutes.
get the estimate of how much the item was worth.
Okay. And for the 50 or so times you've seen other people make those transactions, how long did it take them on average?
Like I said, about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what they were doing.
So what I'd like to do, rather than rewatching all of this video, the same sections that we saw before, I'm going to fast forward up to 29 minutes and 30 seconds into the video. We'll go to 29 minutes here. Do we still see the same two young women at the Eco ATM that we talked about on Friday?
We do.
On Friday, you also identified a gentleman in a tan hat who you saw come in with them.
Correct.
Can you please let me know if you see that gentleman again on this section of the video? We are now at 29:30 into the video.
I don't see him currently. I do now.
We're at 29:57 into the video. Is he still wearing the tan hat?
He is.
I'd like to have you review this for approximately 1 more minute, and then I'm going to pause it and ask you a few questions, okay?
Yep.
The gentleman with the tan hat, which way did you see he went?
He went towards the general merchandise entrance.
We're going to pause it here, 31 minutes and 9 seconds into this particular track. You went towards the general merchandise entrance?
Correct.
Okay. And the other young lady that had been there at the kiosk that time before, which direction did she go?
Also in that same direction.
Were you able to, using the recorded footage, see where they went in the store after they disappear off the screen of this camera?
I was.
And was that part of the footage that you provided here on this packet of videos that you gave to the Manchester Police Department?
It was.
Could you describe for me this camera footage? I believe you sent on Friday, but I apologize, I forget the answer. About how high off the ground is this one?
I'd say about 10 feet.
10 feet?
About, yeah.
Are there any videos, are there any cameras within Walmart when you were working there at this time period that cover people's facial features better so we might be able to help identify these folks a little better?
Yes, they're called the public view monitors.
Where are those located?
They're scattered throughout the store, but the ones that I provided were in the health and beauty department.
And health and beauty department, on the labels on the videos, do they say health and beauty or do they say another name for the ones that came from that section?
I don't remember, but it would either be health and beauty or cosmetics.
Cosmetics.
Yeah.
Okay. With regards to cosmetics then, what I'd like to do is on that exhibit that we talked through on State's Exhibit 1, I'd like to ask, did you review those cameras as well to see where those two other people went, the gentleman in the tan hat and the other young lady?
Yes, any video that I provided, I would have had to personally watch in order to burn it.
And when you burn these onto the CD, if we were looking at the CD here, is there time signatures on each one of those tracks so we know what time period is captured?
Yes.
I'd like to start then with the track that you listed at the earliest time period, Cosmetics EVPM 6, 12/30/2021, from 14/28/33 through the same date of 14/28/51. The cosmetic section.
Yes,
You see that same gentleman in the tan hat.
we do.
Is that the same young lady with him?
Correct.
How high are these cameras off the ground?
I'd say they're about face level. So it comes down from the ceiling and it's probably, I would say maybe a foot above me.
Okay. And how tall are you?
I'm about 5'9".
Okay. So about 5'10" or so?
Yeah.
Play that track one more time. This area of the store, where is it in relationship to that service desk?
It's still in the front end of the store, but it's probably from the general merchant. It's closer to the general merchandise entrance.
General merchandise?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you walk in through that entrance, you take a right and it's right there.
And at that point, I'd like to go to the next track that you provided to the police department. Cosmetics EPVM 4, 12/30/2021, from 14/28/47 through the same date of 14/29/13. And show you that track. And tell us if you can see those same two individuals.
I do.
And what is the relationship of this aisle compared to the last aisle that we just saw?
They're right next to each other.
At this point, I'd like to ask you now about the next track that you provided to the Manchester Police Department, track entitled Cosmetics EVPM 6, 12/30/2021, from 14/29/10 through the same date of 14/29/21. Is this the first aisle that we saw from that first cosmetics track?
Yes,
And do you see the same two individuals here?
I do.
And I believe you said that that aisle that we just saw is directly next to the one that we saw previously.
I believe so, yes.
I'd like to go to the next track that you provided, Cosmetics EVPM 5, 12/30/2021, from 14/29/18 through the same date of 14/32/16. And please let us know if you see those same two individuals. And which aisle does this cover?
This is also cosmetics.
Is it the same aisle that we just saw a moment ago, but from a different angle, or?
No, this is a different aisle, I believe.
Okay. And do you see the same individual in the tan hat and the young lady with him?
I do.
Would you agree with me? It's fair to say that these cameras are much closer to individuals than those earlier shots over at the service desk.
They are, yes.
The item that the gentleman in the tan hat seems to have in his hand, were you able to identify what that is?
If I remember correctly from one of the frames in the video, it was a prepaid phone, it looked like.
Thank you. And how long does Walmart hold on to these videos? What's the time period of retention on them typically?
It just depends, but it's typically anywhere between a month to 3 months.
Thank you. Now I'd like to show you and ask you questions about the last of the cosmetic tracks that you provided to Manchester Police Department. Cosmetics EVPM 6, 12/30/2021, from 14/32/22 through the same date of 14/33/1. If I could direct your attention to the screen and let us know if you see those same two individuals, okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
I do.
And let us know if they reappear on the screen.
They do. And they appeared again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Doe.
Yep.
Are there any cameras that were closer than that, that were even closer to an individual's face that you routinely used while you were working at Walmart?
The only ones that I could think that would be closer would be the entrance and the exit cameras.
And were there any that were kind of in between that close level of view here and the farther away view? Is there kind of like a middle range?
I believe so, yes.
Is there one that was located in an area near razor blades?
Yes.
like to show you one of the other tracks on here that you gave to the Manchester Police Department. The razor blade camera from 1432.50 all the way through 1434.31. Is this that middle view that we're talking about?
Yes,
And can you see the individual in the tan hat here?
I can, yes.
Where are they?
They're in the far left aisle.
Far left on the screen here.
Yep.
And if you would, please let us know if you see them reappear.
I do.
And where are they located now?
I'm not exactly sure what that aisle is, but the one to the right of it is the razor blade aisle. So it'd be the aisle after the razor blades.
Okay. And eventually, were you able to record those individuals leaving the store?
I was, yes.
I believe you said just a moment ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said there was near the exit, there are cameras that are even closer to an individual to capture their face.
Correct.
Such scum. Losers. And let me tell you what, I used to feel bad about Kelsey. I really did. And I still do on some levels. I still do. When she died last year, I just had this feeling in my gut that she knew more. And no way does she not know more. She was in the thick of it. Let's look at the verdict again. Watch Teardrop's face. Well, it's been a really screwy morning, Mama Bear, because I'm like, we're on verdict watch. But in the meantime, we'll do this show about Candace Hare, Grandis. Well, then they didn't give any notice. They're just like, we're coming in the courtroom. We have a verdict. Usually, they'll be like, we'll read the verdict at 1 o'clock. Here's the verdict, my friends.
All right, for jury.
Please be seated.
The defendant remains standing, and would the foreperson please stand? Madam Foreperson, it's the court's understanding that the jury has reached a verdict in this matter.
Yes.
As to charge ID 2008742C, charging the defendant, Adam Montgomery, with the crime of armed career criminal as it relates to the shotgun, do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant is guilty?
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? As to charge ID 2008743C, charging the defendant, Adam Montgomery, with the crime of armed career criminal as it relates to the rifle, do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant is guilty.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
As to charge ID 1964101C, charging the defendant with the crime of receiving stolen property as it relates to the shotgun. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that the defendant is guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And as to charge ID 1964100C, charging the defendant Adam Montgomery with the crime of receiving stolen property as it relates to the rifle, do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that the defendant is guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
And on charge ID 1964099C, charging the defendant Adam Montgomery with the crime of theft by unauthorized taking as it relates to the shotgun. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that the defendant is guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
And as to charge ID 1964098C, charging the defendant Adam Montgomery with the crime of theft by unauthorized taking as it relates to the rifle, do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that he's guilty, Madam Foreperson.
Yes.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have the alternates return to the jury deliberation room along with the deliberating jurors. You may now speak about the case. So if the, yes,
Prior to the deliberating.
okay,
And don't object to a whole as to the verdict. Instead of one.
on all of the verdicts together for each juror. Yes, okay. So,
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm now going to poll the jury. So I'll ask you each individually for your verdict. And this is as to all charges. So on charge ID 2008742C, charging the defendant with the crime of armed career criminal as it relates to the shotgun.
hang on one moment.
Okay, he knows he is up shit creek without a paddle. He knows the game is up. He knows he's screwed. Because there's going to be justice for Harmony. Whether they find her or not, I don't know. I don't know. I think Kayla could be helping out with that. I think had Kelsey survived, I think she had a lot of information. I think she had a lot of information. And knowing how well connected she was with Kayla and Adam, I mean, neck deep connected. She would have been called yesterday or sometime this week. I've always wondered. I know she accidentally overdosed. The sentencing, I think, is in 2 weeks. I know she accidentally overdosed, they said. I've just always wondered with the people he hangs around if somebody didn't get to her. She went to rehab. She went to a sober living facility. And then she shows she's found dead at a motel. All right, this is Kelsey on the screen. I will never understand how Teardrop gets these women. I will never understand it. It says Whitney Sitch. This is not Whitney Sitch. That's the person that sent the photo in. Oh, don't think he wasn't knocking boots with Kim. That was part of her embarrassment on the stand. You have a man come over to your house while your husband's out on the road working his ass off. And next thing you know, the man that's working his ass off, his guns are gone. Yeah. All right, this is a little backstory on Kelsey. You all tell me what you think.
According to court documents, Kelsey Small told police she was romantically involved with Adam Montgomery for more than a year. Kelsey told detectives she was aware Adam had 4 children with 2 women, but said Adam never mentioned Harmony Montgomery at all, and she did not have information about where she may be. During that same roadside interview, Adam Montgomery told detectives that Harmony was fine, but that he had not seen her since her biological mother came to Manchester to pick her up around Thanksgiving of 2019. Crystal Sorey is Harmony's mother, who raised the alarm about Harmony not being seen. Adam Montgomery was arrested in early January on an assault charge for hitting Harmony and remains inside Valley Street Jail. He has not requested a bail hearing. Kelsey Small is not implicated in any way in Harmony's disappearance, but there was hope she might have information from Adam that she might eventually share. Kelsey's cousin released a statement through a spokesperson that says, quote, "She was so much more than that, and I hate that one of her last connections here on earth was to him." News 9 obtained Goffstown police.
Could you imagine someone saying that? I just hate that her last connection on the earth was to him. They had a lot of conversations at the Walmart, selling phones, buying drugs, living in the car. They were living in the car together. Just little conversations. She had to have picked up on something. Yeah, she's not on this planet anymore.
Records that reveal Kelsey was arrested outside a sober home where she was living, charged with DUI, second offense. She was released on bail. 5 days later, she was found dead in a hotel room.
And Kelsey Small's death is not considered suspicious. We're live in Manchester this evening. Amy Cavino, WMUR News 9.
Suspicious to me. It's just a little too convenient for Teardrop. And it's no secret they had to keep Kayla protected. Because let's face it, this cast of characters that he is friends with and people he knows, they can make people get away real quick. Real quick. Let's take a second and tell everybody hello, because I rushed into this. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for bouncing right in here. And I'm sorry I had to interrupt the last show, but you know, we've just been all over the place, not knowing what was going to happen with this. Because it comes right down to this. Which criminal do you believe? Well, I guess they believed them all. It's a pretty simple case. Teardrop had a gun. Teardrop's not supposed to have a gun. Whether he borrows it, steals it, buys it, however, he's not supposed to. That's it. Open and shut. Teardrop's not supposed to do anything. No. No. So now what we have coming up at the end of the year, and it's just right around the corner. We're almost into the middle of June. I'll be talking about Christmas trees soon. You know I will. Will be the murder trial for Harmony. And we're going to stream it. We're going to watch every day of it. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. This is what we have to get ready for.
Good afternoon. I'm New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella, and I'm joined here today by Manchester Police Chief Alan Aldenberg and the team from the Manchester Police Department and members of my office. We're here today to provide a further update regarding the ongoing investigation into the 2019 murder of Harmony Montgomery. As you'll recall, back in January, we announced that 5-year-old Harmony likely disappeared sometime between November 28th and December 10th of 2019. In August of this year, After almost 8 months of investigative work undertaken by the Manchester Police Department, the Attorney General's Office, the U.S. Marshals Service, the FBI, and other law enforcement partners, we announced that we had concluded that 5-year-old Harmony was murdered in Manchester in early December of 2019. This conclusion was based on multiple sources of investigative information, including biological evidence. Since August, the Manchester Police Department, the Attorney General's Office, and our other law enforcement partners have continued to investigate this case in an effort to seek answers and justice for Harmony. Today, we are announcing another major step in this investigation. Earlier this morning, Adam Montgomery was arrested for the murder of Harmony Montgomery in 2019 and other related charges. Specifically, Mr. Montgomery has been charged with the following 4 crimes. Second-degree murder for recklessly causing the death of Harmony Montgomery, a person under 13 years of age, under circumstances manifesting an extreme indifference to the value of human life, by repeatedly striking Harmony in the head with a closed fist in Manchester on or about December 7, 2019. Falsifying physical evidence for purposely altering, destroying, concealing, or removing the body of Harmony Montgomery with a purpose to impair its verity or availability in an official proceeding or investigation in Manchester between approximately December 7th, 2019 and March 4th, 2020. Abuse of corpse for purposely and unlawfully removing, concealing, or destroying the corpse of Harmony Montgomery or any part thereof in Manchester between approximately December 7th, 2019 and March 4th, 2020. And tampering with witnesses or informants for purposely attempting to induce or otherwise cause Kayla Montgomery to testify or inform falsely in Manchester between approximately December 7th, 2019 and January 4th, 2022. Mr. Montgomery is expected to be arraigned on these charges in Hillsborough County Superior Court, Northern District in Manchester tomorrow, October 25th, 2022. While today's arrest is a major step in this investigation, there is much work to come. The charges and allegations against Adam Montgomery are merely accusations, and he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. That said, today I do want to again express my deepest sympathies to Harmony's family, friends, and loved ones. We understand that today's news, while significant for purposes of this investigation, is yet another difficult moment for those who loved Harmony and those who have followed this case. Our hearts go out especially to Harmony's family. My office will continue to provide whatever assistance we can through our Office of Victim Witness Assistance as they deal with these difficult moments. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Manchester Police Chief Alan Aldenberg, but once again, before I do, I want to extend my sincere thanks to the chief and the entire team at the Manchester Police Department for the time and dedication and professionalism that they've put into this case and their relentless pursuit for justice on behalf of Harmony and those who knew and loved her. Chief.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm Alan Aldenberg, the Chief of Police for the Manchester Police Department. This morning at approximately 10:30 a.m., Adam Montgomery was transported to the Manchester Police Department. He was booked in on the charges of second-degree murder, falsifying physical evidence, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with a witness. The booking process was completed without incident, and he was then transported back to the Hillsborough County House of Correction. Although we are all pleased that we were able to bring forth these charges, they are of no solace to myself, the detectives behind me, who have worked tirelessly on this investigation, and more importantly, they bring no solace to the loved ones of Harmony Montgomery and her family and friends. Again, I want to take a moment to publicly thank the detectives and the New Hampshire Attorney General's Office for their unwavering commitment and devotion to this investigation. Specifically behind me, in no particular order, Captain Sean Layton, Captain Matt LaRochelle, Detective Jack Dunleavy, Detective Scott Riley, Detective Max Rayhill, Deputy U.S. Marshal Billy Tufts, a couple more in the back of the room, Lieutenant Georgioulis, Detective Davenport, and Detective Coswick as well. Many, many people have sought justice for Harmony, and they are unmatched in their tenacity and their professionalism. Every single one of you has been the voice of Harmony and seeking justice for her. Said I wasn't going to do it. Has been your single motivation and number one priority for the past 10 months. I also want to thank your families who've also had to endure the long hours, missed family events, and all the sadness that this investigation has brought. As I had before, I want to personally acknowledge Senior Assistant Attorney General Jesse O'Neill and Benegatti. These two gentlemen are steady, professional, compassionate, and the ultimate pursuers of justice for Harmony. I'm certain that the charges that we have brought forward today will garner additional discussion, speculation, and undoubtedly will elicit a wide range of emotions from the public. I ask that in memory of Harmony, that we all make every effort to do something nice for a child today. I know of no other way. I know of no other way to respect and honor this innocent and defenseless child than to extend an act of kindness to another child in her memory. Just take a few moments out of your day to say something nice to a child. Give him or her a hug, some special words of encouragement. Give them an extra hug, or just simply tell them that you love them and that you'll always protect them. I want to emphasize that our work is not finished, and that the gentleman with me today will not stop until this case is brought to the appropriate resolution. As always, I encourage members of the public to continue to use the dedicated tip line should they have any information at all that would assist us in the investigation. Again, that dedicated tip line is 603-203-6060. I'll say it again. That number is 603-203-6060, and that phone line is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, thank you all for being here today. I will now hand it back to the Attorney General for some closing comments. General.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you again to you and your team for all of the work that you put into this case and for the work yet to come. We have a lot of work ahead, but we will continue our work to seek justice for Harmony and all those who loved her. Before I close, I do want to acknowledge the work of our team at the Attorney General's office, especially Senior Assistant Attorney General Jesse O'Neill, who's been on this case from the beginning, and Senior Assistant Attorney General and Homicide Unit Chief Benegatti. Both have worked closely and tirelessly with Chief Aldenburg and the Manchester Police Department in this investigation. And again, there is much more work to come. As to any further specifics or questions about the nature of evidence in this case, due to the fact that we now have pending charges against Mr. Montgomery, we're unable to make further comments at this time. Additional information will be made available through court filings and in court proceedings as the case moves forward. Thank you for your time.
I want to take you live to New Hampshire, where officials in Manchester are giving an update on the investigation.
Horrible. 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 Let me ask you guys this. Do you think that Teardrop and Kim's relationship was platonic? Or do you think there was a little something more going on? When your husband is at work or is out hunting on the weekend or whatever, do you ever invite one of his buddies over just to hang out and buy drugs with you? Do you ever loan a gun to another man? I think there's more going on. I think there's more. And good for Chris getting the hell away from her. He's an over-the-road truck driver. He's working his ass off. If you guys have time, I wanted to go through part of Kim's testimony. Because, I mean, I've listened to it several times, and I'm just like, these people can't get any worse. Extra AF said, I immediately thought there was some funny business after hearing Kayla's testimony. Yeah. And old Step Meth, all she could do was say enough to keep the heat off of her. And I'm still never going to get over this. This is the Step Meth we met in January of 2022. And this is the Step Meth we saw on Monday. What you're looking at right there, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? Kim's a bad hombre too. I certainly don't want to hear her anymore talking about how she got her life together. She moved out of Manchester. She works in healthcare now. They wouldn't let her wear a mask on the stand. Don't you love how these criminals show up with those rags on their face? It's like you've already done the unthinkable. Society already knows how nasty you are. That mask only makes you look sillier. See what you make out of this.
You had gone to the grand jury in March, and that didn't come out of nowhere. At some point, police, before the grand jury, came out and talked to you. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And at that time, and going back to earlier, at one point you said that you hadn't touched the guns. At another one, you did say that you moved the guns to the couch to be near, from the bed to the couch to be near them.
Correct.
The police asked you about the firearms in that interview sometime before the grand jury, right?
Yes.
And at the time you knew that Kayla was in jail?
I'm not sure.
Okay. You knew Adam was in jail?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Rain, I'm just going to ask you to please keep
Sorry.
your voice up again. I know it's a big room, but it is important that everybody be able to hear you.
Okay.
And you were living away from everybody in Manchester, right?
Correct.
And you had gone through the rehab and you had a steady job, right?
Yes.
Feeling like you're separated from your former life, right?
Yes.
Not entirely separated from Chris because you two share a daughter.
Correct.
And you still talk to Chris.
Correct.
So when we talked about not liking the guns and not touching the guns versus moving the guns to the couch, when the police asked you in the interview before the grand jury about the guns, you told them that you like to use the firearms at the range and would never get rid of them, right?
Right.
And that's when you said that the fourth firearm wasn't taken because it was in your vehicle, right?
Correct.
So,
The little guns. I don't shoot the big ones, just the little ones.
okay.
She's out of her damn mind. She is out of her mind. All right, that's the defense attorney talking to her. Look at this one where the state's talking to her.
Take for you to become sober.
I went to rehab, and when I got out of rehab, I
Had a mask on that was taken off.
Yeah.
It sounded like you didn't want to take that off.
no,
Why's that?
I have a job. I wear a mask every day. I work in healthcare. COVID. I was just dealing with someone who had COVID over there 5 minutes ago. So
Where do you currently live?
I live in Meredith, New Hampshire.
And who do you live there with?
My parents,
Anyone
my
else?
daughter.
How old is your daughter?
She's 6.
And prior to living in Meredith, where were you living?
With my ex, Chris Rain, in Manchester,
What was that address in Manchester?
252 Russell Street.
How long had you lived there?
Probably 6 years.
You mentioned Chris Vrain.
Yes.
How long have you known him?
Probably 7 years, 8 years now.
Do you have a child with him?
Yes.
Is that the daughter you mentioned?
Yes.
And what were the years that you lived on Russell Street in Manchester?
I'm not picking on anybody. I'm really not. And I'm certainly not making fun of anybody that has any sort of addictions, addiction personality, any of that stuff. But it seems to me that she's still on something. And I don't think it's Tylenol.
I don't know.
Were you living there in 2019?
Yes.
And when did you leave that address?
2 years ago, maybe 3.
So back in 2019, and I want to focus on late 2019, September, October, who was living in that home with you on Russell Street?
Me, Chris, and my daughter.
Did you have any pets?
Yes, my dog,
What was your dog's name?
Jack.
And tell me about Jack. What kind of dog was Jack?
He's like a pit bull mix, and he's brown. He's a big dog.
Was he a guard dog?
Yeah. Say he barks.
And let's talk about that. When people would come, would he come to the house?
Yes.
Always or just sometimes?
Always, like annoyingly always.
So, and you mentioned this briefly. What do you currently do for work? How are you employed?
I work in healthcare and I work at a hospital.
What hospital do you work at?
I don't want to say.
Okay. But you're in healthcare.
Yes.
How long have you worked in that field?
2 years.
Same hospital?
Same hospital.
And so I want to focus back on September, October 2019. Were you working in healthcare back then?
No.
Can you tell me what your life was like back then?
I was working at Dunkin' Donuts. Me and Chris didn't get along. We were both into bad things. We were in both bad places then. Wasn't a good time in my life.
So you said you were into bad things. You were at a bad place.
Yeah.
And I want to suss that out. I want to talk about it a little bit more. What do you mean when you say you were in a bad place?
I was doing drugs. He was doing drugs. Bad things were happening all around us.
When you say you were doing drugs, what drugs were you using?
Heroin and cocaine.
Did you ever use crack?
That too. Yep.
And back then, how did you support that habit?
I was working at the time.
And you mentioned you were working at Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
Which Dunkin' Donuts were you working at?
Beach Street.
Beach Street.
Yeah.
Are there things that you did back then that you regret?
Yep.
Can you tell me
Yes.
about that?
everything I did. I regret.
Yes.
We worked together and I knew him from Kayla. I moved away from Manchester to get away from it.
The objection is sustained. You can rephrase the question.
You mentioned you were doing drugs. Is that something that you regret from back then?
Yes,
Were you heavy into drugs back then?
yes,
And you mentioned that back in 2019, your daughter would have been 2 years old.
yes.
Do you want those things becoming public?
No.
How do you feel about having that time in your life, that dark time, becoming public?
It's the last place I want to be right now. It's right here, right now.
You don't want to be here,
No,
and you don't want this information coming out to
no,
your coworkers.
right. All my friends, my new life I created. I moved away from Manchester to get away from it all. Now it's all back.
Are you ashamed of this period in your life?
Yes.
As if we're supposed to feel sorry for her. I moved away from Manchester to get away from it all, and now it's all back. I work in healthcare. You wash sheets.
Are you currently sober?
Yes.
What did it take for you to become sober?
I went to rehab, and when I got out of rehab, I moved back in with my parents, my daughter, and I did like an outpatient program for like a year. I did meetings, then eventually got a job.
You had mentioned you took yourself out of the situation.
Yes,
That was being in Manchester.
yes.
How long have you been sober?
3 years in March.
So back in that time frame that we were talking about earlier, September, October 2019, who would you associate with?
Just want me to like name them, like
Please.
friends. Well, I worked at Dunkin' Donuts with Kayla and Adam, and I hung around some not great people like Ish and Manny and Mike and Amber.
And so I want to follow up on a few of the names you just mentioned, but first, so you were working at the Dunkin' Donuts on Beach Street, is that what you mentioned?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
there was two of them. One was Beach Street, and then there was one that was in Irving Station.
okay, and I think you mentioned you worked with Kayla.
Yes,
Who is Kayla?
Kayla Montgomery.
How long have you known her?
I don't know her like anymore, but when we worked together, we known each other for a couple of years. We were both pregnant at the same time together.
So you were working together, you were pregnant. Did you have a drug connection with Kayla?
It turned into that, yeah.
You mentioned Adam.
And Adam
How did you know Adam?
work.
And who is Adam?
Adam is Kayla's ex,
Do you know his last name?
Montgomery.
Okay. And you said, I think you said you worked with him at one point.
Yeah, he worked with us too for a little while.
And is that how you knew him, or was it more through Kayla?
Both.
I'm sorry?
Both. Like, we worked together and I knew him from Kayla.
And so back to Kayla, how would you describe your relationship with her?
We hung out like a few times. Like, I babysat her kids like once or twice. I didn't hang out like a lot.
Okay.
I give them rides to work.
What bothers me about this statement is Kim, I believe, Kelsey Smalls, I believe, all knew Harmony. Kelsey, I'm not 100% sure of. I babysat her kids. I think a lot of people knew that all of this abuse was being heaped on Harmony and did nothing. Nothing. They were all so ready for their next score, their next fix. I think a bunch of people were passing the pogo stick, if you know what I mean. They were all taking turns on Teardrop, and I think it was for drugs.
And home after work.
Do you know where they were living back then?
Yes, but I can't remember.
Was it in Manchester?
Yes.
About how far from where you were living were they?
Like 10 minutes
And that's a 10-minute drive.
drive.
Did you have a drug connection with Adam Montgomery?
Yeah, I'd call him and see if he could find anything.
Would you use drugs with him?
Yeah.
How would you describe your relationship with Adam Montgomery?
Just like acquaintances.
Just like acquaintances. We don't invite acquaintances to our house when our husband's at work. We don't ask random acquaintances to get us crack. We don't do heroin with acquaintances. No, just acquaintances. Just acquaintances. No, there was more going on, and I guarantee those glances she keeps giving to old Teardrop is because she knows what she had to do to get those drugs. Let me tell you, she knows. And letting him steal those guns was only part of it.
Drug friends.
I'm going to ask you,
Sorry.
you need to speak up. Okay, thank you.
Did you have items taken from your home back in 2019?
Yes.
Was that October 2019?
Yes.
Were you and your husband, did you go in to report a theft?
Yes.
So can you just tell us what happened that led to you reporting that?
Yeah, Chris went to work and he was gone for like a week. And when he came back, he noticed his guns were gone. And so he reported them. And then when the police showed up, Chris called me and had me also talk to them that day to report them.
So what items were taken?
3 guns, a watch, and I don't know what else.
Was a men's silver wedding band initially reported as being
I
taken?
think Chris reported it stolen, but it wasn't. I had pawned it like months before.
So it wasn't one of the items taken during this incident?
She pawned her own husband's wedding ring. She pawned her own husband's wedding ring. Woo! Woo! Teardrop has quite the hooks into these chicks, does he not?
Did you subsequently clarify that with the police?
Yeah.
You remember?
I bet that was a heated conversation. Chris calls the popo. I can't find my guns. I don't know what's going on. My wife's been here all week. Can you help me? She's made some new friends at Dunkin' Donuts. Did your Dunkin' Donuts friends come over, Kim? They're just acquaintances. I can't find my wedding ring either. Come on.
Remember when that was?
No. When they asked me, I told them.
Judge, I'm going to move to correct. It's been identified as exhibit 7A through Marcus Full.
Any objection? No objection. All right. Exhibit 7A through E, the ID is stricken and they're entered as a full exhibit.
And may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
And so, Kim, I'm handing you what's been marked, or I'm handing you exhibits 7A through E.
Attorney Knowles, if I could just ask, is the ID not yet stricken on those?
No.
All right, so let me just ask for the monitor. If you would give them to the monitor first, you can strike the ID, mark them as full, and then I'll have you show them to the witness. Thank you.
So, Kim, I'm handing you exhibit 7A through E, and I just want you to look at each of those in turn and describe what they depict. So, what are those documents?
The ring that I pawned. And that's me. That's my ID. That's my signature.
Okay, and when did you pawn that ring?
August 5th, 2019.
And you said
August 5th of 2019 is when she pawned the ring. Harmony Montgomery was alive in August of 2019. She was hanging out with Step Meth and Teardrop in August of 2019.
said that that's you in the photo.
That's me.
That's the ring that you'd pawned.
Yes.
And I think you initially mentioned, or I think you mentioned that you had clarified that subsequently with the police.
Yes.
You can just set those aside for now. So we're describing this incident where items were taken from your home. Did that have an effect on your life at the time?
Yeah, it was like the worst thing that could happen because it created, it was a robbery at our house where my daughter lives. So DCYF got involved. They tried to take my daughter away.
Liar. 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 Pants on fire. If you are the victim of a burglary, if someone robs your house and you call the police, guess what? Nobody takes your children. you file an insurance claim after you get your police report, wait for the check to come in to replace your stuff. They got involved because the authorities in Manchester knew there was something going on here besides a robbery. They could probably tell by looking at her. She's on drugs. Yet we're supposed to believe Crystal that they wouldn't do anything for her. But we have a governor's report that already says she was lying. No. Somebody breaks into your shed and steals your lawnmower, Child Protective Services does not get involved. Somebody breaks into your house and steals your guns, Child Protective Services does not get involved. Extra AF said, girl, I had break-ins 2 days in a row and no child services were called. No. We know why they were called.
It was a nightmare.
Okay, and so I want to unpack the events that you described.
Okay.
You said that your husband was out of town,
Yes.
and can you just describe when he left?
I don't remember exactly when he left, but he always left for work and would come back a few days later.
And
He traveled a lot for his job.
What would you typically do when he was out of the home?
I'm sorry.
What would you typically do when he was out of the home?
Work. I don't understand that question.
You understand the question. That's the reason you just have that nervous laugh. What did you typically do when your husband left for the week? He would leave on Monday morning, come home on Friday night. He's an over-the-road truck driver. I don't understand that question. Work? You didn't even work 20 hours a week. So what did you do with the rest of the week? You hung out with Teardrop and Step Meth. That's what you did.
Continue to work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang out with friends, work.
And so on this occasion, did you hang out with friends at your home?
Yes.
Who did you hang out with?
Adam came over one night.
Ooh. Look at her. Ooh. My goodness. Adam came over one night. I bet he did. I bet he came over more than just one night. I bet it was a lot more than just one night. I bet he flopped at your house throughout the entire week and left his kids over there with Step Meth and showed up every now and then to put gasoline in the generator.
Do you know how he got there?
He drove.
And had he been to your home prior to that occasion?
Yeah.
About how many times would you say?
Maybe like 3 or 4 times.
And that night, did he come by himself or was he with other people?
He was by himself.
Woo! It's getting heated. Victoria, is she in prison too? No, she is not. I mean, half of these people took immunity deals. So he's just an acquaintance, but he comes to her house with her husband out of town alone. And does he have an affliction with K names? Kelsey, Kayla, Kim. Ooh, 3 or 4 times. No, that night he drove over. It was just him.
And why was he there?
Because we wanted to try to get some drugs together.
And was there more to that plan? Were you going to do the drugs together?
Probably, yeah.
What were you trying to get that night?
Crack.
Earlier, you'd mentioned Kayla. Was she there that night?
No.
And
Because step meth didn't know. Britt said, and she never let her husband know someone stopped by until he couldn't find his guns. There you go. There you go. This acquaintance that drives himself over to the house when your husband's out of town because you want to do some drugs together. Ooh.
And can you just describe for us, how did he get to your home? So from the moment he entered?
Like I called him and he came, drove over, and I let him in the house.
When you let him in, was that in the front door or the back door?
Front door.
What did you do when he arrived?
I wish he would ask her what she was wearing. I really do. What were you wearing? Because believe it or not, this is an important thing. Front door or back door, Teardrop got both. I guarantee. With all the stuff they were doing, Teardrop got the front door and the back door.
We went into the living room and I remember just sitting on the couch and we couldn't find, do you want me to say that like the whole night?
So you're at the point where you let him in, you're sitting on the couch. What
Yeah.
happened next?
Then I remember looking over at him and he was like half asleep. And I had been up for like 3 days at that time. And I remember just closing my eyes.
So Teardrop comes over, enters through the front door and the back door. Then he nods off. We know what makes men go to sleep real fast. We all know it. But she'd been awake for 3 days. What the hell was she taking that would keep her awake for 3 days? God. Oh, hang on. Fun Size says, Brooks, I officially became a grandmother to a healthy 8-pound, 3-ounce baby boy, Leo Atticus. What a beautiful story. Congratulations, Fun Size. Send me a picture. I'll put it on the community tab for the members only. Send it over. Congratulations.
And when I woke up in the morning, he was gone.
All right. Teardrop drives over, does not have step meth with him. Front door, back door action. He falls asleep. And the next morning, she wakes up and he's gone. What does that sound like to you guys? I think I know why when old Chris Frayne got home and couldn't find his guns and find out old girl's been having the Dunkin' Donuts crew over and pawned his wedding ring. I think that's what led to her getting the hell out of Manchester. It wasn't her life decision. This was some bone jumping.
Before you had Adam over that night, had you seen those guns?
Yeah,
Okay, do you remember when you had last seen them?
I don't.
But it was after Chris Frayne left, your husband?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Do you remember telling officers that you had stubbed your toe while you were making the bed on the guns that week?
Oh, probably.
Do you remember
that though?
Remember?
No.
Do you remember who you contacted for drugs that night?
No.
Who was your typical connection?
There was lots of people. There was Mike, there was Ish, there was Adam.
Those are all people that you had bought from?
Yes.
When you say Ish, do you know his name?
No.
When you say Mike, do you know his last name?
Yes, now I do.
What is his last name?
Sullivan.
So at what point in time, I just want to understand the timeline. At what point in time did you contact individuals? Was it after Adam got there or before?
I don't know.
And did you reach out to Adam Montgomery or did he reach out to you?
I don't remember.
When Adam arrived, you said you let him in your front door. Did your dog bark?
I would assume so. He always barks.
Was your daughter home at the time?
Yes.
And what was she doing?
Sleeping.
She had her daughter around that. That's the reason DCYF was called, not because they were robbed. Hang on, I gotta sneeze. Oh, I muted myself just in time. Boy, that snuck up on me. Out of her mind. Out of her mind. Now, I believe that she gave Teardrop the guns. I do, 100%. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Teardrop is walking down the road and he sees a gun laying on the curb. Felons are not supposed to have guns, period. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If it shows up in the mail, he's got to call the police and say, hey, there's a gun in my mailbox. Criminal Med said, who is this, please? This is the ex-wife of the man whose guns were taken. I think she gave him the guns, but it doesn't matter. That part does not matter because Teardrop is not allowed to have guns.
She would have been 2 around that time?
Yeah.
How was Adam acting when he got to your home?
Normal self.
And do you remember around what time he arrived?
No. It was like late at night. I remember that, but I don't know what time.
I think you mentioned that you looked over at him and he looked like he was half asleep.
Yeah.
How long had he been in your home at that point?
Maybe like an hour, 2.
I think you also mentioned that you'd been up for a few days, 3 days.
Yes.
Why were you up for so long?
Because that's what drugs do to you. Keep you awake.
So you'd been using drugs for the past 3 days at that point?
Yes.
At some point, do you believe you fell asleep?
Yes.
And what was the last thing you remember before that happened?
I just remember looking over at him and he looked tired and we had the TV on, just watching TV.
Where were you in the house at that point?
I was on the couch and he was in the chair.
And the firearms that we were just discussing, where were they in your home?
Under the bed and in Chris's drawer, I believe.
Did you wake up at some point?
I woke up in the morning.
And describe what you saw when you woke up.
I woke up in the morning. Adam was gone. I went out into the kitchen and there was a pipe left on the table with like drugs still in it, which was weird because we didn't have anything that night. So that was weird. Then I went out onto the breezeway and there's like a back porch and that door was wide open. And I thought that was weird, but I just shut the door and went on with my day.
And at that point, had you realized that anything was missing?
No,
At some point, did you realize that items were missing?
when Chris got home and he looked for them.
And would that have been the next day, or is that the day where you
I think
woke
it
up
was a day or two later
that Chris got home?
when Chris got home.
And describe Chris coming home and realizing the guns were missing.
He came home and he looked under the bed and he couldn't find them, and I helped him. We just like looked everywhere around the house, and then he got really mad once he realized they were really gone, and he started throwing things down the stairs and throwing things across the house, and he was very mad. And then we went to bed. And then he called them the next day to the police.
He called the police the next day?
Yeah.
Were you there when he called the police?
I wasn't when he first called, but the police said to have me come there. So Chris called me and I drove over there.
I bet they did. I bet they did. And I don't believe this story that Chris was on drugs too. Chris has a safety sensitive job through and they have mandatory testing through the FMCSA. And it's not always a piss test. At any time, that random test can be hair. Now, when all of this went down, Chris was called in for a mandatory test where they took hair. Guess what they found? Nothing. This is her partying while he's out of town. This is her partying while her husband's out of town with Teardrop. No.
Okay. And I think you said that when he got back, you realized the guns were really gone.
Yeah,
What guns are we talking about?
all 3 guns.
Okay. And do you know what types of guns they were?
The 2 big guns and then the 380. I think it's a shotgun and the AR.
So you weren't there when he initially called. Did you return home?
Yes,
And was that while the police were there?
yes. They wanted to talk to me, so
Was there another gun in your home the night that those items were taken?
yes, the 45.
Where was that kept in your home?
He usually keeps the 2 handguns in the drawer and then the 2 big guns under the bed, but I had the 45 in my car during that time.
When did you return? At some point, did you return the 45 to the drawer that you mentioned?
I don't remember doing it. I could have. I wanted to say I handed it to Chris, but it was 4 years ago, so I really don't remember.
Needless to say, though, the 45 wasn't amongst the items that were taken.
Correct.
So back in 2019, when you were living at that house on Russell Street, did you have security cameras?
No,
Were the guns in a safe?
no, he had a small safe, but he didn't put anything in it. I don't know why.
So when you returned home that day, were the police there?
Yes,
Did you speak with them?
yes,
In that statement, did you tell them Adam Montgomery had been to my house?
no.
Why not?
I really didn't think like a friend of mine would do that to me at the time. So I literally thought we just got robbed. Like it's Manchester. It's bad. I thought we just got robbed by someone I didn't know.
At some point, did you
Right.
become suspicious?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I started hearing rumors from friends that Adam had taken them.
Sustained.
Its effect on the listener, Judge.
Approach.
Safe to say, when we have a 2-year-old running around the house, we shouldn't just have guns under the bed. Look at Teardrop. He is staring her down. Woo! He is furious.
So I asked you about your first statement to the police. You didn't mention the defendant. And that would have been right after this happened, correct? So I want to move forward in time. We were talking about September, October 2019. I want to move to December 2019.
Okay.
You have a major life event in December 2019?
Maybe.
Were you arrested by the police?
Yes.
Would
I
you
was.
consider that a major life event?
Yes.
Okay. What were you arrested for?
I had drugs on me.
And can you describe that incident?
I was at a gas station and I had drugs on my lap. And when the cops came, they saw them and arrested me.
What were you doing at the gas station?
Taking a nap.
So you were sleeping?
Yeah.
Were you outside or inside?
Inside the car.
Okay. So you got arrested.
Yes.
And after being arrested, did you speak with detectives?
I think they asked me. I don't really remember that whole time
Why do you think you don't remember?
because I was on drugs.
Were you still using crack?
Yes.
Were you still using heroin?
Yes.
And I think you had mentioned cocaine as well.
Sure. Yes.
So during the second interview, did you tell detectives that, or did you tell officers that you had said goodbye to Adam the next morning when you woke up?
I don't remember that.
So I want to fast forward even more. I want to talk about February of 2022. Did you meet with detectives again?
Yes.
Is that when you told them the information about the pond items or the pond
That's
ring?
when they asked me about it.
You told them, I pawned the ring.
Yes.
Sustained.
During your February 2022 interview, were you sober at that point?
Yes.
So you were living a sober lifestyle?
Yes.
Did you have any of the memory issues that had been associated with your drug use?
No, not anymore.
Did you have any reason to protect Adam in your initial statement to police?
No.
Were you afraid of him?
Overruled.
Were you afraid of him?
Yeah.
So Kim, I'm going to ask you to look at the jurors now. The acts that you admitted to doing, having this man in your home when your husband's gone, using drugs for days on end, those are all things that you did?
Yes.
Pawning your husband's ring, that's something that you did?
Yes.
Lending out a 380, is that something that you did?
Yes.
The night that the guns were stolen, the big guns, did you buy those guns or did you sell those guns?
No.
Did you trade those guns?
No.
Did you lend them out?
Yes. Not the big ones, but
So,
the little one.
so I'm talking about the night of the theft.
Oh, no. None.
So you didn't buy them, or sorry, you didn't sell them?
No.
You didn't trade them?
No.
You didn't lend them out?
No.
Overruled. Go ahead.
And you had mentioned just now that there was one that you lent out.
Hmm.
Can you tell us about that?
I did like twice lend them, but I got them back.
Which, was it them or was it one of the guns?
The 380.
Yeah. Teardrop and his buddies check out the 380 as if it's a library book. No, lady, you were in on this too. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because Teardrop can't have a gun. Doesn't matter how he came across it. Doesn't matter if his grandpa gave it to him for his birthday. Doesn't matter. He can't have one. Lending guns, so normal. Can I borrow a cup of sugar? I don't have any sugar. I've got a 380. You want to take that home with you? Just make sure you bring it back.
Who would you lend that to?
Ish.
And you don't know Ish's name, his full name.
I can't remember it.
Who loans a gun to someone whose name you don't know? She doesn't realize she has just gotten herself into a heap of trouble because they're not playing there. She's a small fish to fry, but don't think that her day's not coming. Don't think her day is not coming with them.
The times that you lent them out, was that before or after the theft?
Before.
And you said you always got it back.
Yes.
Would you lend any other items out?
My car as well.
Did you always get it back?
Not always.
Adam is an acquaintance. Teardrop is an acquaintance who borrows a 380 from her, sleeps at the house, and borrows her car. Let me ask you guys, my fine friends, do you let people borrow your guns and your car? Anybody? Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No, we don't do that. We don't do that.
You were always able to get it back, though.
Yes. Sustained.
If I could have just a moment. So just a moment ago, I want to follow up. Just a moment ago, you mentioned them when I asked you if you'd lent the guns out. Were there other guns other than the 380 that you'd lent out?
The 45, I think, maybe once.
And who would that have been to?
Mike Sullivan.
Mike Sullivan? Any of the long, did you ever lend the
No,
long guns?
no.
The big
I never
guns?
touched those guns.
Why not?
'Cause they're huge and they just lived under the bed. I'm not comfortable touching them.
The event that you described, lending out the two smaller guns, was that something that was public amongst that circle of friends that you had?
Public, yeah. Like they knew. Everybody knew.
Everybody,
Talked.
including the defendant?
I would maybe.
The person that you were using drugs with that night or wanted to use drugs with that night had over at your home?
Yes.
You said that was Adam Montgomery?
Yes.
Do you see him here today?
Yes.
Can you point him out and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
He's right there in a collared shirt.
Your Honor, can the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant?
The record should so reflect.
And thank you, Ms. Byrne. I have no additional questions for you at this time.
All right. And that is it. My goodness. What a torrid situation we have going on here. And in the middle of all the guns, the drugs, Dunkin' Donuts, and the depraved people, little Harmony was murdered. Snazzy said, so they were under the bed. How did Adam know they were there? Maybe because you were in the bedroom with him? You think? Yeah. You think? I think we know what was going on around there. And at this time, Kim could have a gun because she hadn't been charged with any sort of drug possession yet. After all this went down, they kept an eye on her, found her at the gas station, passed out, and she got arrested. Yeah, I have a feeling old Chris wasn't too happy. I have a feeling he was not too happy. All right, guys, it's been another great show, and I am so glad that Teardrop is going to be locked away for a very long time. Even though we haven't had sentencing yet, I don't see this judge playing around. She's going to give him the maximum. Then they're going to haul his buns back to the courtroom later this year, and we're going to hear some very disturbing testimony, biological evidence. Of course, we're going to hear from Step Meth again. Probably going to hear from this cast of characters again. about what happened to Harmony Montgomery. You guys have a great rest of your day. Again, I apologize for having to preempt the show from this morning. We'll do part 2 on Monday morning. Tomorrow, we're going to do a week in review because a lot of stuff to go over. And it's Friday. Try to keep it low key on Friday. Thank you, Mod Squad, because I know that was tough today, going back and forth between shows. But you guys keep it real. You keep it cool every day. Thank you guys very much for being here. And we're just going to keep plugging right along. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning.